The massive space station floated like a metal city among the stars. Ships from 12 different alien races docked at its ports, each vessel representing the best military technology their civilization could offer. The Kalian Nebula stretched out beyond the station, a colorful cloud of gas and floating rocks that would serve as the battlefield for today's exercise. Captain Tae-Ho Park stood on the bridge of his ship, the UNS Indomitable, watching the alien vessels through the main screen. Each ship was at least 3 times larger than his own. The Vorthak dreadnoughts looked like flying fortresses, covered in weapon turrets and thick armor plates. The crystalline ship seemed to be made of pure energy, glowing with bright colors that hurt to look at directly. The Nexus fleet vessels moved in perfect formation, their metal hulls polished to mirror brightness. "Captain, we're receiving a lot of interesting scans from the other ships," said Lieutenant Su Jin Yoon from her communications station. "They seem very curious about our technology." Tae-Ho smiled. He could imagine why. The Indomitable had started life as a mining ship, built to crack asteroids and haul ore through dangerous space. It was tough and practical, but it looked rough compared to the elegant alien warships. The hull showed scars from meteor impacts, and the paint was faded in places. To the aliens, it probably looked like a piece of junk. "Let them look," Tae-Ho said. "They'll learn soon enough." Engineer Dongmin Lee looked up from his console. "Captain, I've been studying the exercise rules. They expect us to fight like them. Long-range bombardments, formal battle lines, that sort of thing." "And what do you think of that approach?" "Dongmin?" The engineer grinned. "I think it's boring, sir, and probably stupid." Commander Boram Kim, the ship's tactical officer, walked over to join them. "The alien commanders are already positioning their fleets, standard textbook formations. They're treating this like a chess match." "Good," Tae-Ho said. "While they're playing chess, we'll be playing a different game entirely." A message came through on the main communication channel. Admiral Hye-Jin Choi appeared on the screen, her crisp uniform marking her as humanity's official representative to the Galactic Fleet. Behind her stood several alien officers, their strange faces showing polite but dismissive expressions. "All vessels prepare for the stellar dominance exercise," Admiral Choi announced. "This is a chance for our newest member species to observe proper military procedure and learn from our more experienced civilizations." One of the alien officers, a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms, stepped forward. "I am General Quan Su Vex of the Vorthak Empire. We look forward to seeing what the humans can accomplish with their modest vessel." The way he said modest made it clear he meant something else entirely. Tae-Ho had heard that tone before, from corporation executives who thought miners were just stupid rock breakers. It never ended well for the executives. "Message acknowledged," Tae-Ho replied formally. "UNS Indomitable ready for exercise commencement." The communication ended, and the bridge fell quiet for a moment. Then Su Jin started laughing. "Did you hear that? Modest vessel. I think they're expecting us to lose badly." "Let's not disappoint them," Tae-Ho said. "At least not in the way they expect." Dr. Yeon-Soo Lim, the ship's physicist, pulled up a detailed map of the nebula on the tactical display. "Captain, I've been analyzing the exercise area. The nebula has some interesting properties. High metal content in the dust clouds, several gravitational anomalies, and these asteroid clusters that could provide excellent cover. While the aliens will probably avoid all those hazards," added navigator Seojin Kang. "Their ships are too valuable and too big to risk in the dangerous areas." "Exactly," Tae-Ho said. "They see obstacles. We see opportunities." The exercise countdown began. On the main screen, they could see the alien fleets moving into their starting positions. The Vorthak ships formed a battle line, weapons pointed forward like an ancient army of spearmen. The crystalline vessels spread out in an elegant pattern, their energy fields crackling with power. The Nexus fleet arranged itself in a perfect geometric formation that probably looked beautiful from above. "All ships exercise begins in 30 seconds, came the announcement. Weapons Officer Jin Woo Han checked his console. "Captain, our weapons are ready, though I have to say, compared to those alien ships, we're seriously outgunned." "That's only true if we fight their kind of battle," Taeho replied. Boram, what's our first move? The tactical officer had been studying the nebula map intently. There's a dense asteroid field about 20 kilometers from our starting position. If we can reach it without being detected, we can use it as a base of operations. And how do we avoid detection from 12 different fleets all watching us? Boram smiled. We don't avoid it, Captain. We make them think we're doing something else entirely. The countdown reached 0, and the exercise began. Immediately, the alien fleets started their stately advance into the nebula. Their movements were precise and predictable, following battle plans that had probably been used for thousands of years. The Indomitable shot forward at maximum speed, heading straight for the thickest part of the asteroid field. Within minutes, the ship disappeared from most enemy sensors as the metal-rich dust clouds interfered with their scans. Engineering, I need you to work some magic, Taeho called to Dongmin. Already on it, Captain, came the reply. I'm adjusting our energy signature to match the background radiation. The mining equipment modifications are complete, and I've prepared some special surprises for our alien friends. Medical officer, Hyunjung Park looked nervous. Captain, if we're going into that asteroid field at this speed, we're likely to take some damage. The aliens probably think we're crazy. They're probably right, Taeho admitted. But crazy works when everyone else is being predictable. On the tactical display, the alien fleets continued their careful advance. They moved like they were performing a ceremony instead of fighting a battle. Their formations were beautiful, their coordination perfect, and their tactics exactly what any military academy would teach. Soo-jin, are you picking up their communications? Taeho asked. Yes, sir. They're coordinating their search patterns. Very professional, very organized. And Captain... Soo-jin paused, listening to her headset. They're talking about us. General Vex just told his fleet that the humans have probably gotten lost in the asteroid field and will eliminate themselves without any help. Perfect, Taeho said. Let them think that. Dongmin, are those modifications ready? Ready and waiting, Captain. Just give the word. Taeho looked at his crew, these miners and engineers who had volunteered to represent humanity among the stars. They didn't look like elite military officers. They looked like working people who knew how to solve problems and get things done. All right, everyone, he said. Time to show the galaxy what humans can do. Let's begin our real work. The hunt was about to begin, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Deep in the asteroid field, the UNS Indomitable moved like a ghost between the floating rocks. Captain Taeho Park watched the tactical display as the alien fleets continued their careful search patterns outside the dangerous zone. Their ships moved in perfect formations, scanning methodically and communicating constantly with each other. They're following the textbook exactly, observed Commander Boram Kim. Each fleet stays in its assigned search zone, maintains safe distances from hazards, and reports findings through proper channels. Which means they're completely predictable, Taeho replied. Dongmin, how are those modifications coming along? Engineer Dongmin Lee's voice came through the comm system, from deep in the ship's hull. Almost finished, Captain. I've converted 3 of our mining charges into kinetic projectiles. The cargo containers have been modified to release metallic debris clouds on command. And the best part, I've rigged our drilling laser to pulse, at the same frequency as background radiation. What does that last part do? Asked Navigator Seojin Kang. It means when we fire the laser, their sensors will think it's just natural energy from the nebula, Dongmin explained. They won't even know they're being shot at until it's too late. Lieutenant Soo-jin Yoon looked up from her communication station, excitement in her voice. Captain, I'm intercepting Vorthak Fleet communications. They're planning to sweep through Sector 7 in exactly 12 minutes, standard battle line formation. Perfect, Taeho said. That puts them right where we need them. Jinwoo, are you ready with the special ammunition? Weapons Officer Jinwoo Han nodded enthusiastically. The mining charges are loaded into tubes 1 through 3. I have to admit, Captain, this is nothing like the weapons training they taught us at the academy. Good, Taeho replied. Academy. Training is exactly what they're expecting. Dr. Yansu Lim studied the sensor readings from her science station. Captain, the The crystalline ships are maintaining position at the outer edge of their search zone. They seem reluctant to enter areas with high particle density. Their energy-based hulls probably don't handle debris impacts well, Boram observed. They're built for clean space combat, not this kind of environment. Everyone remember, we're not trying to destroy these ships, Tejo announced to his crew. This is an exercise. We want to disable them, make them withdraw, or force them to admit defeat. But we also want to make a point about human capabilities. The first target appeared on their screens exactly as Sujin had predicted. 3 Vorthak. Cruisers moved in perfect formation through Sector 7, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. They scanned ahead carefully but ignored the asteroid field to their right, where the Indomitable waited in silence. Range to target? Tejo asked quietly. 8 kilometers and closing, Jinwoo reported. They're maintaining standard spacing, about 2 kilometers between ships. Perfect. Dongmin, give me a debris cloud right in their path. Sujin, start. Jamming their communications on my mark. Jinwoo, prepare the mining charges. The crew worked with practiced efficiency. These weren't career military officers, but they were people who knew how to work together under pressure. Every person on the bridge had experience with dangerous mining operations where one mistake could kill everyone. Debris cloud away, Dongmin announced. A cargo container shot out from behind a large asteroid and exploded silently in space, creating a cloud of metallic particles directly in the path of the Vorthak ships. The alien vessels immediately began evasive maneuvers, but their formations were too rigid to adapt quickly. Communications jammed, Sujin reported. They can't coordinate with each other or call for help. Fire mining charges, Tejo ordered. 3 modified mining explosives streaked through space toward the confused Vorthak ships. The charges weren't designed to penetrate hulls. Instead, they exploded near the alien vessels and released clouds of magnetic particles that stuck to their hulls and interfered with their sensors and weapons. Direct hits on all 3 targets, Jinwoo announced with satisfaction. Their weapon systems are showing massive interference. Sensors are blinded. On the main screen, they watched the Vorthak ships struggling to clear the magnetic particles from their hulls. Without communications or working sensors, the 3 cruisers were effectively helpless. Exercise control to Vorthak fleet, came a transmission over the general channel. Vessels' conquest, victory, and dominance are eliminated from the exercise. Reason: total systems failure due to environmental hazard, Sujin grinned. I don't think they realize we caused that environmental hazard. Let's keep it that way, Tejo said. What's our next target? The crystalline ships proved to be even easier prey. Their energy-based construction made them beautiful and powerful, but also vulnerable to the tricks that worked well against sophisticated technology. When the Indomitable used the nebula's natural electrical fields to create a feedback loop in one of their vessels, the crystalline ship overloaded and had to withdraw from the exercise. This is almost too easy, Boram commented as they watched the damaged alien ship limp away. They're so focused on using their advanced technology that they can't adapt when the environment turns against them. Don't get overconfident, Tejo warned. They're starting to learn. Look at the Nexus fleet. The mechanical precision of the Nexus ships had always been their strength, but now they were using it differently. Instead of maintaining perfect formations, they had spread out and were moving in unpredictable patterns. Their scanners swept constantly, and they stayed away from areas where ships had been eliminated. They're adapting faster than the others, Seojin observed. Those ships are controlled by artificial intelligence systems. They learn from each engagement. Then we need to teach them the wrong lessons, Tejo decided. Sujin, can you hack into their communication network? The communications officer looked surprised. Captain, that would be extremely difficult. Their security systems are probably centuries ahead of our technology. I'm not asking you to break their security, Tejo explained. I'm asking you to trick them into thinking they understand what we're doing. Sujin's face lit up with understanding. You want me to send false information through their own systems, make them think we're where we're not, or doing things we're not doing. Exactly. These artificial minds are very smart, but they process information logically. If we feed them false data that fits their expectations, They'll make logical conclusions, based on wrong information. For the next hour, the Indomitable played a deadly game of hide-and-seek with the remaining alien fleets. They used the asteroid field like a three-dimensional maze, appearing suddenly to strike at enemy ships before vanishing again into the rocky maze. Each attack was different, using modified mining equipment in ways that no military manual had ever considered. They turned a drilling laser into a precision weapon that could disable specific ship systems. Magnetic grapples became tools for pulling enemy vessels into asteroid impacts. Even the ship's waste disposal system was converted into a weapon that fired clouds of debris to blind enemy sensors. "Captain," Dr. Yansu said during a brief pause, "between attacks, the alien commanders are starting to communicate with each other more frequently. I think they're trying to coordinate a response to our tactics." "Good," Tejo replied. "Coordination requires predictable behavior. The moment they start working together, they become easier to anticipate." Medical Officer Hyun-Jung Park had been monitoring the crew's condition throughout the engagement. "Everyone's adrenaline levels are high, but we're in good shape. No injuries, yet, and the crew is actually enjoying this." That was true. Unlike the formal, serious atmosphere on the alien ships, the Indomitable's bridge buzzed with excitement and creativity. Each crew member was contributing ideas for new tactics and modifications. They approached the battle like a challenging problem to solve, rather than a formal military engagement. "Next target?" Jinwoo asked eagerly. Tejo studied the tactical display. The remaining alien ships were now working together, sharing information and coordinating their search patterns. They had learned to avoid obvious traps and were scanning more carefully for hidden threats. But they were still thinking like traditional military forces. They expected their enemy to have limitations, to follow certain rules, to behave in predictable ways. "I think it's time to show them that humans don't always follow the rules," Tejo announced. "Dongmin, remember that crazy modification you suggested earlier? The one I said was too dangerous?" The engineer's voice came back immediately, filled with excitement. "You mean the gravity drive modification?" "Captain, that's still incredibly risky." "But it would work?" "Oh, it would work all right. We just might not survive it." Tejo looked around at his crew. These miners and engineers had volunteered to represent humanity among the stars, knowing the risks. They trusted him to make the right decisions, even when those decisions seemed impossible. "Then, let's do it," he decided. "Time to show the galaxy what humans can accomplish when we stop playing it safe." The observation deck of the space station had become crowded with alien officers and officials. What started as casual viewing of a military exercise had turned into something much more serious. Representatives from all 12 galactic civilizations pressed against the viewing windows, watching displays that showed the current status of their fleets. On the main tactical screen, red markers indicated eliminated vessels. The Vorthak Empire had lost 5 ships. The Crystalline Confederation was down 3 vessels. Even the advanced Nexus fleet had suffered 2 eliminations. All of these losses were attributed to a single human ship that seemed to appear and disappear at will. "This is impossible," growled General Kwansu Vex, his forearms gesturing angrily at the display. "One primitive vessel cannot defeat our combined fleets. There must be some mistake in the exercise parameters." Admiral Hyejin Choi stood quietly in the corner, trying to hide her amazement. She had expected the UNS Indomitable to make a respectable showing, perhaps eliminate 1 or 2 ships before being overwhelmed. She had never imagined this. "Perhaps," suggested the crystalline observer, its voice like musical chimes. "The human vessel is employing illegal modifications or weapons not permitted in the exercise rules." "I've reviewed all their equipment personally," Admiral Choi replied. "Everything aboard the Indomitable is standard mining and cargo equipment, nothing specifically designed for military use." "Then how are they achieving these results?" demanded the Nexus Fleet commander, its mechanical voice showing frustration that artificial minds weren't supposed to feel. Down in the nebula, Captain Tejo Park was asking himself the same question, but for different reasons. The modifications to their ship were holding up better than expected. His crew was performing magnificently, and their unconventional tactics were working beyond his wildest hopes. "Captain," reported Chief Science Officer Nam Ho Jang from his station. I'm detecting significant changes in alien fleet movements. They're abandoning their search patterns and converging on our general area. How many ships? Tae-ho asked. All of them, Nam Ho replied grimly. Looks like they've decided to work together to deal with us. Commander Bo-ram Kim studied the incoming formations on her tactical display. They're using a standard encirclement pattern, trying to trap us in this asteroid field by blocking all the exits. That might work against a normal ship, observed Navigator Seojin Kang. But we're not planning to leave through the exits, are we, Captain? Tae-ho smiled. No, we're not. Dongmin, is that gravity drive modification ready? Engineer Dongmin Lee's voice came through the comm with barely controlled excitement. It's ready, Captain, but I have to warn you one more time. This modification will let us use the nebula's gravitational anomalies like a slingshot, but the stress on our hull will be enormous. We could be torn apart. And if it works, we'll be able to move faster and more unpredictably than any ship in the galaxy. We'll essentially be using natural forces to teleport across the battlefield. Dr. Yeonsu Lim looked up from her calculations. Captain, I've been studying the gravitational fields in this nebula. There's a particularly strong anomaly about 15 kilometers from here. If we can hit it at exactly the right angle and speed, we should be able to redirect ourselves to appear right in the middle of the alien formation. Should? Questioned Medical Officer Hyun Jung Park. What are the chances of success? About 12%, Yeon-su admitted. The bridge fell silent for a moment. 12% odds were terrible by any reasonable standard. No military commander would attempt such a maneuver with chances that low. Captain, said Weapons Officer Jin Woo-han quietly, back when we were cracking asteroids for the mining company, what were the odds of success on that job in the Titan Belt? Tae-ho remembered. About 8%, but we pulled it off. And the emergency rescue at the Phobos station? 5%, we saved everyone. Lieutenant Soo Jin-yoon joined in. The point is, Captain, we're used to taking chances that other people think are impossible. It's what we do. Tae-ho looked around at his crew. These weren't academy-trained officers who had learned to calculate risks and minimize casualties. These were miners and engineers who had learned that sometimes impossible odds were the only odds you got. All right, he decided. Let's show the galaxy why humans don't give up when things get difficult. All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. The ship's internal communication system carried his voice to every compartment. This is the captain speaking. We're about to attempt something that has never been tried before. Hold on to whatever you can find and trust your crewmates. We're going to make history today. Outside, the alien fleets continued their careful approach. 12 different civilizations had put aside their differences to deal with this unexpected human threat. Their ships moved in coordinated patterns that showed thousands of years of military tradition and tactical development. They're very impressive, Bo-ram observed, watching the alien formations. Look at that coordination. Every ship knows exactly where it's supposed to be. That's their weakness, Tae-ho replied. They're so well organized that they can't adapt quickly when something unexpected happens. The Indomitable began moving toward the gravitational anomaly, accelerating steadily. On the sensors, the crew could see the massive alien fleet approaching from all sides. There were more than 40 ships out there, representing the best military technology in the galaxy. Range to gravitational anomaly? Tae-ho asked. 5 kilometers and closing, Seo-jin reported. Speed is at maximum safe velocity. Increase to maximum possible velocity, Tae-ho ordered. Captain, that's beyond safe operational limits, Nam-ho warned. I know. Do it anyway. The ship shuddered as the engines pushed beyond their design specifications. The hull groaned under the stress, and several warning lights appeared on engineering consoles. But the crew had experience with pushing equipment beyond its limits. They knew how far they could go before something actually broke. 2 kilometers to anomaly, Seo-jin announced. Gravitational fields are starting to affect our navigation. Through the main viewing screen, they could see space itself beginning to bend and twist around them. The gravitational anomaly was invisible, but its effects were dramatic. Stars appeared to be in the wrong positions, and nearby asteroids moved in impossible directions. All alien ships are in position, Soo-jin reported. They think they have, Us trapped. 1 kilometer to anomaly, Seojin called out. Hull stress is approaching critical levels. Hang on, everyone, Taeho ordered. The ship hit the gravitational anomaly at exactly the right angle and speed. For a moment that felt like hours, the Indomitable was stretched and twisted by forces that could crush planets. The lights flickered. The artificial gravity failed, and several crew members lost consciousness from the acceleration. Then they were through. Space snapped back to normal around them, and suddenly they were exactly where Dr. Yan-Su had calculated they would be. Right in the center of the alien formation, surrounded by surprised enemy ships. All weapons fire at will, Taeho ordered. The modified mining equipment that had served them so well throughout the exercise now proved its worth in close combat. Drilling lasers disabled alien sensors, magnetic grapples pulled enemy ships into collisions, and clouds of metallic debris blinded entire formations. But more importantly, the sudden appearance of the human ship in an impossible location had completely disrupted the aliens' careful coordination. Ships designed to work in formation found themselves scattered and confused. Communication networks that depended on predictable positioning were useless when no one knew where anyone else was supposed to be. Enemy fleet is in complete disarray, Boram reported with satisfaction. They're trying to reform, but they can't coordinate without risking collision with their own ships. Captain, Sujin called out urgently. I'm receiving surrender signals from multiple alien vessels. They're withdrawing from the exercise. On the space station observation deck, the alien commanders watched in stunned silence as their fleets retreated in disorder. Ships that had never been defeated in centuries of warfare were fleeing from a single human vessel that shouldn't have been able to challenge any one of them, much less all of them together. How is this possible? General Kwansu Vex asked in a voice that had lost all its earlier arrogance. Admiral Hyojin Choi stepped forward, her own voice filled with pride and amazement. Because you've been fighting the same way for thousands of years. You've perfected your tactics and your technology, but you've forgotten how to adapt when something completely unexpected happens. And the humans remember? The humans never forgot, she replied. They've been learning to adapt since they first left their home planet. Every challenge they've faced has been something new, something their textbooks and training never covered. They've learned to see problems as opportunities and to find solutions that no one else would even consider. Back on the Indomitable, the crew was celebrating their impossible victory. They had taken 12% odds and turned them into complete success through skill, teamwork, and willingness to risk everything for their goals. Captain, Dr. Yansu said with wonder in her voice, we just changed the way space combat will be conducted for the next 1,000 years. No one will ever again assume that traditional tactics are. The space station's communication center buzzed with frantic activity. What had begun as a routine military exercise was now being broadcast across the galaxy. News networks from dozens of civilizations were demanding updates about the impossible human victory. Military academies were requesting copies of all sensor data. Even the Galactic Council had dispatched observers to witness what was happening. Admiral Hyejin Choi found herself fielding calls from the highest levels of galactic government. The questions were always the same. How was this possible? What technology were the humans using? Was this some kind of trick? Admiral, said her aide, a young officer named Jae-min Song. The Galactic Defense Committee is requesting an immediate halt to the exercise. They're concerned about the implications of human military capabilities. Denied, Admiral Choi replied firmly. The exercise continues according to the original parameters. The humans earned the right to finish this. Down in the nebula, the UN's Indomitable faced a situation that no one had anticipated. The exercise rules had been designed for multiple fleets competing against each other, not for one ship eliminating everyone else. But Captain Taeho Park's crew had managed to disable or force the withdrawal of more than 30 alien vessels. Captain, reported Commander Bo-Ram Kim from her tactical station, the remaining alien ships have regrouped. They're no longer following exercise protocols. What do you mean? Taeho asked. They've abandoned their individual fleet identities and are working as a single unit. All remaining vessels are under unified command. It looks like they're treating us as an actual threat rather than an exercise participant. Lieutenant Soo-Jin Yoon looked up from her communications console with concern. Captain, I'm intercepting their messages. They're using terms like unknown military technology and potential galactic security threat. I don't think they consider this an exercise anymore. Dr. Yeon-Soo Lim studied her sensor readings carefully. 18 ships remaining, Captain. They include the largest and most advanced vessels from each fleet. These aren't ships they were willing to risk in the early phases of the exercise. In other words, observed navigator Seojin Kang, we're now facing the absolute best that galactic civilization has to offer. Taeho considered this development. The exercise had moved beyond its original purpose. Instead of demonstrating human capabilities to a few military observers, they were now in a situation that would determine humanity's place in galactic civilization for generations to come. Dongmin, he called to engineering. How's our ship holding up? Engineer Dongmin. Lee's voice came back strained but determined. We've pushed everything beyond design limits, Captain. The gravity drive modification is causing stress fractures in the hull. The mining equipment we've been using as weapons is overheating, and our power systems are running at 120% of rated capacity. How much longer can we keep this up? Maybe another hour before something critical fails. Medical Officer Hyun-Jung Park had been monitoring crew status throughout the prolonged engagement. Captain, we have 17 crew members with injuries from the gravity maneuver. Nothing critical, but everyone's exhausted. We've been fighting for 6 hours straight. Taeho looked around his bridge crew. These miners and engineers had already achieved the impossible, but now they faced an even greater challenge. The alien ships approaching them represented centuries of military development and technological advancement. Captain, said Weapons Officer Jin Woo-han, we're down to our last mining charges, and the drilling laser is operating at reduced efficiency. If we're going to make a stand, it will have to be with whatever we have left. Then we'd better make it count, Taeho decided. Boram, show me their formation. The tactical display revealed the alien strategy. 18 ships arranged in 3 layers with the largest and most powerful vessels in the center. They were approaching slowly and methodically, scanning constantly for any sign of human tricks or traps. They're not taking any chances this time, Boram observed. Maximum spacing between ships to prevent multiple eliminations. Overlapping, sensor coverage, redundant communication networks. They've learned from our previous attacks. Have they learned the right lessons? Taeho asked. Chief Science Officer Nam Ho Jang had been studying the alien formation intently. Captain, they're still thinking in terms of conventional space combat. Their formation assumes we'll try to attack from a distance or use stealth to approach unseen. And what if we don't? What if we what, sir? What if we don't attack them? At all? What if we make them come to us? The bridge fell silent as the crew considered this unexpected strategy. Throughout the exercise, the Indomitable had been the aggressor, using speed and surprise to strike at enemy ships before disappearing. But now Taeho was suggesting the opposite approach. Captain, Soo-Jin said slowly, if we let them surround us, we'll be trapped with no room to maneuver. Unless, Taeho replied with a growing smile, we turn that trap into our weapon. Dr. Yeon-Soo looked up from her calculations. Captain, there's a cluster of large asteroids about 5 kilometers from our current position. The gravitational fields there are complex and the metal content is extremely high. Perfect, Taeho said. That's where we make our stand. Dongmin, I need every modification you can think of, even the ones that sound completely crazy. Captain, we've already used every modification I can think of. Then think of new ones. For the next 30 minutes, the crew worked with desperate creativity. They turned the ship's waste recycling system into a weapon that could fire clouds of metallic particles. The artificial gravity generators were modified to create localized gravitational fields that could pull enemy ships off course. Even the food preparation equipment was converted into a device that could spray superheated liquid metal. This is insane, muttered Hyun-Jung as she helped convert medical equipment into electronic warfare tools. We're turning every system on the ship into some kind of weapon. Insane is what we do best, replied Jin Woo cheerfully as he loaded their last mining charges into improvised launchers. The alien fleet approached with careful precision. Their formation was textbook perfect, their coordination flawless, and their firepower overwhelming. By any reasonable measure, the humans were doomed. "All ships," came the transmission from the alien fleet commander. "This is your final opportunity to surrender. You have fought well, but you are outnumbered and outgunned. There is no shame in admitting defeat." Tejo activated the communication system. "This is Captain Tejo Park of the UNS Indomitable. We appreciate your offer, but we're not quite finished yet." "Captain," the alien commander replied, "you have already exceeded all expectations. Your tactics and courage have impressed every civilization in the galaxy. But this engagement is over. Surrender now and your crew will be treated with the highest honors." "Thank you for the kind words," Tejo said politely. "But we have one more demonstration to give." The alien ships moved into their final attack positions. 18 of the most advanced warships in galactic history surrounded a single human vessel that was held together by modifications and repairs. The outcome should have been obvious to everyone. "All stations ready?" Tejo asked his crew. Around the bridge, tired but determined faces nodded back at him. These people had already proven that humans could compete with advanced alien technology. Now they were about to prove something even more important. "Execute final gambit," Tejo ordered. Every modified system on the Indomitable activated simultaneously. Clouds of metallic particles filled the space around the ship. Artificial gravity fields grabbed nearby asteroids and hurled them toward the alien formation. Streams of superheated metal shot out in all directions. Electronic warfare systems began jamming alien communications and sensors. But the real surprise came when the aliens tried to respond. Their perfectly coordinated formation became a liability when every system they depended on suddenly stopped working properly. Ships designed to work together found themselves interfering with each other. Communication networks that had functioned flawlessly for centuries became sources of confusion and false information. "Captain," Boram called out in amazement. 3 alien ships have collided with each other. 2 more are showing critical system failures. The rest of their formation is completely disrupted. Surrender signals coming from multiple vessels," Sujin reported. "Captain, I think we've won." On the space station observation deck, absolute silence greeted the final moments of the engagement. Military observers from 12 different civilizations watched as their combined fleets either surrendered or withdrew from combat against a single human ship. General Kwansu Vex spoke in a voice filled with wonder and respect. "In 3,000 years of military service, I have never seen anything like this. How did they know exactly what we would do?" Admiral Hai-Jin Choi stepped forward to address the assembled alien observers. "They didn't know what you would do. They created a situation where it didn't matter what you did. That's the difference between human tactics and everyone else's. You plan for specific scenarios. Humans plan for uncertainty itself." The communication channel crackled to life as Captain Tejo's voice reached the space station. "Exercise control, this is UNS Indomitable. 3 weeks after the stellar dominance exercise, the space station had been transformed into a center of galactic attention. Delegations from across the galaxy arrived daily to meet with the crew of the UNS Indomitable and study the records of their impossible victory. The small human ship sat in the main docking bay, looking even more battered and ordinary next to the sleek alien vessels that surrounded it. Captain Tejo Park found himself in the strange position of being the most famous military officer in the galaxy. Requests for interviews, tactical consultations, and speaking engagements poured in from hundreds of worlds. Military academies wanted him to lecture. Defense contractors wanted to license his modifications. Even civilian news networks wanted to tell the story of the miners who had revolutionized space combat. "Captain," said his aide, Lieutenant Sujin Yoon, as she entered his temporary office with another stack of requests, "the Vorthek Military Institute is offering to make you their highest-ranking guest instructor. The Crystalline Defense Council wants to hire you as a strategic consultant. And the Nexus Fleet has requested permission to completely redesign their tactical doctrine based on your methods." Tejo looked up from the report he had been writing. "What did you tell them?" "That you're a mining ship captain, not a military instructor, sir." Good answer. The door chimed, and Admiral Haijin Choi entered the office. Her uniform now bore additional decorations marking her new role as Director of Human Galactic Military Relations, a position that had been created specifically to handle the aftermath of the exercise. "Captain," she said formally, then relaxed into a smile. "Or should I say Admiral? The Galactic Council has voted to offer you the rank of Fleet Admiral and command of the new Combined Tactical Development Center." "I appreciate the offer," Taeho replied, "but I think I'll stick with Captain. And I'd prefer to stay with my ship and crew." "I thought you might say that," Admiral Choi said. "Which brings me to my real purpose here. The Council has approved the establishment of the Human Combat Innovation Center. We want you to run it." She activated a holographic display that showed plans for a massive facility. It would be built at the edge of human space, with full access to asteroid fields and nebulae for realistic training environments. Your crew would form the core instruction staff, teaching both human and alien officers the principles of adaptive combat. Taeho studied the plans. The facility was impressive, with training simulators, research laboratories, and docking bays for hundreds of ships. "This is a big responsibility, Admiral." "Yes, it is. But you've already proven that humans have something unique to contribute to galactic security. The question is whether you're willing to share that knowledge with others." Before Taeho could respond, the door chimed again. This time it was General Quan Su-Vex of the Vortek Empire, accompanied by representatives from several other alien civilizations. The general's 4 arms carried data tablets and what appeared to be formal documents. "Captain Park," the general said with deep respect, "I come with a request from the Combined Military Council of the 12 Galactic Powers." "What kind of request?" "We want to learn from you," the general said simply. "For thousands of years, we have fought the same way, using the same tactics, following the same principles. You have shown us that there are other ways to approach warfare, ways we never considered." The crystalline representative, its form shimmering with different colors, spoke in its musical voice. "Your methods have applications beyond military conflict. The principles of adaptive thinking and creative problem-solving could benefit many aspects of galactic civilization. We are prepared to offer substantial resources," added the Nexus Fleet Commander. "Technology, personnel, funding, whatever. You need to establish a training program that can teach others to think as humans think." Taeho looked at the assembled alien officers, these representatives of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. 3 weeks ago, they had dismissed his ship as primitive and his crew as inexperienced. Now they were asking him to teach them. "There's something you need to understand," he said carefully. "What we did out there wasn't the result of special training or advanced technology. It was the result of being ordinary humans who were willing to try things that seemed impossible." "Explain," requested the general. "Every person on my crew had experience with dangerous, unpredictable situations where failure meant death. We learned to see problems as puzzles to solve rather than obstacles to avoid. We learned that sometimes the best solution is the one that seems completely crazy to everyone else." Dr. Yeon-Soo Lim, who had been quietly working at a side console, looked up from her calculations. "Captain, I've been analyzing the psychological profiles of our crew versus typical military personnel from other species. The difference is significant." She activated a holographic display showing comparative data. Military training across all galactic civilizations focuses on discipline, following procedures, and minimizing risk. Human civilian occupations, especially in dangerous fields like mining and exploration, focus on adaptation, creative problem-solving, and accepting calculated risks. "In other words," Taeho said, "you've all been training your military personnel to be very good at doing expected things. We trained ours to be good at handling unexpected situations." Engineer Dong-Min Lee joined the conversation from the doorway, where he had been listening. "It's not just military training, Captain, it's cultural. When something breaks on a human mining operation, you fix it with whatever you have available. When something breaks on an alien ship, you call for replacement parts and follow the repair manual. Both approaches have value," observed the Nexus Fleet Commander, "but your approach has capabilities that ours lacks." Commander Boram Kim entered the office carrying a data tablet. "Captain, I've been reviewing the exercise records with the alien tactical officers. They want to know if our methods can be taught to non-humans." "That's an interesting question," Tae-ho admitted. "Our tactics worked because we were willing to take risks that seemed unreasonable. Can you teach someone to be unreasonable?" "You can teach them to think differently," suggested Chief Science Officer Nam-ho Jang, who had followed Boram into the now crowded office. "The key is getting them to see problems from multiple perspectives instead of just following established doctrine." Medical Officer Hyun-jung Park looked up from her medical scanner, which she had been using to monitor stress levels in the room. "Captain, there's something else to consider. The psychological impact of our victory goes beyond military tactics. We've shown the galaxy that newcomers can contribute something valuable, that established ways of doing things aren't always the best ways." Weapons Officer Jin Woo-han grinned from his position near the window. "Plus, it was fun." When was the last time any of these alien fleets had fun during a military exercise? The alien representatives looked at each other in confusion. Fun was not a concept typically associated with military operations. That might be the most important lesson of all, Tae-ho realized. We approached the exercise as an interesting challenge rather than a formal military engagement. We were excited about the opportunity to try new things rather than worried about following proper procedures. Admiral Choi smiled. "So what's your answer, Captain? Will you accept the position as director of the Human Combat Innovation Center?" Tae-ho looked around the crowded office at his crew, these miners and engineers who had accidentally become the most celebrated military unit in galactic history. Then he looked at the alien representatives, beings from advanced civilizations who were genuinely eager to learn from humans. "I have one condition," he said finally. "We do this our way. No formal military protocols, no rigid training schedules, no standardized procedures. We teach people to think for themselves and solve problems creatively, and everyone who wants to learn has to be willing to take risks and make mistakes." "Agreed," said General Kwansu Vex immediately. "Acceptable," confirmed the crystalline representative. "We can work with those parameters," added the Nexus Fleet commander. Navigator Seo-jin Kang spoke up from her position near the navigation display. "Captain, there's one more thing to consider. If we establish this center, we'll be responsible for training officers who might someday fight against Earth. Are we comfortable with that?" The room fell silent as everyone considered this implication. The knowledge and tactics they would share could potentially be used against humanity in future conflicts. "That's a risk we have to take," Tae-ho decided. "The galaxy is a big place, with a lot of different civilizations. The only way to ensure peace is to make sure everyone understands everyone else. If we teach others to think like humans, maybe they'll also learn to solve problems the way humans do. By working together, instead of fighting." Admiral Choi stepped forward with a smile. "Then it's settled. The Human Combat Innovation Center will be established with Captain Tae-ho Park as its director, and the crew of the UNS Indomitable as its founding staff." The alien representatives began discussing implementation details, resource allocation, and training schedules. But Tae-ho was looking out the window at his ship, the battered mining vessel that had changed the course of galactic history. In 6 months, the UNS Indomitable would be joined by ships from across